So good to have you on, man. The
Man, good to
Saturday
see you,
special. This is my first Saturday ever.
Really?
I've never done a Saturday podcast.
Well, I was, I want to say I was super busy
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, Friday, and I kind of was. I had a really good May, serviced a lot of clients, and they just happened to all close in that month.
Kind of how it goes.
Yeah,
Like
and
rain, of
my
course.
client and my clients, my kids and my wife and I are going to go on vacation here pretty soon. And I decided that I was going to focus more on how I could service my clients better than picking up clients right now.
Okay.
And really part of that is that when I'm gone, I want to be, this vacation, I want to be like on vacation.
Yeah.
Usually when I'm on vacation
Easier
in the
said than
past.
done, right?
Well, when you have clients,
Yeah.
I tell them I'm on vacation. You can reach me at any time. I'll be accessible. But usually like in the morning, the girls will be asleep till 10 and then they'll fall asleep at 9. So after 9, before 10, I'm there. And usually it could get done in those time frames.
Sure.
But this time I just want to go and relax. We're going to Maui, so I really it's a nice little trip. So I want to make sure that I'm taking full advantage.
What made you decide on Maui?
This is going to be out there. So we had another trip planned. We were going to go to Seattle, which is where my wife is from, and our family members were all out of town, essentially. So it wasn't, our schedule didn't meet up with theirs.
Okay.
So even though we could go back and see her friends, it's still kind of a boring place for kids, for a 10 and a 14-year-old. So we decided to go somewhere else, and I was like, San Diego. Or my kids are really into tanning. Like they want tan lines.
Okay.
Like apparently that's in now to
Okay.
have a tan line.
Okay.
So
It's like the 90s is totally back, man. Remember the little bunny rabbit thing girls used to do and stuff?
I'm watching just as a sidebar, I'm watching Love Island because my girls are watching it. It's not a horrible show, but it's, it's debauchery. And I'm thinking, it is.
I get it.
And I'm like, this is just like, I was thinking to myself, like, the Xers, we started all this.
Yeah.
The real world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's all the TikToks and social media, what we're doing now, all
Baggy jeans are back.
Exactly.
Crop tops are back.
Totally.
Yeah. It's
I
weird.
hope jellies don't come back.
Oh, God.
But,
yeah. They will, now that you said it.
Right.
Put it out
Exactly. It'll
there.
be a different version of a jelly.
Right. The reason I asked you about Maui is because I've got this like theory that I've concocted just over the last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like I know so many people that are going to Hawaii and stuff. And you know what it was before that?
What was that?
It was Italy.
Ooh.
And then you know what it was before that? It was Greece.
Ooh, man.
And like
two that are on the list.
I
right?
swear, I mean, I'm sure it's like in our algorithms or something, but like I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but like the Maui thing, it's like I'm pretty sure that got plugged into your like brain somehow. And it's the weirdest thing because now it's all about Maui. And all those places that I did the Italy. Like Ina was like, we got to go to Italy. We got to go. So we went to, what's the popular spot? Amalfi.
Amalfi, okay.
Right? And before that, we had to go to Greece. We didn't go, but we had to go.
Yeah.
And then what was it before that? There was another one before that. And now, you know what the next one is? Mark my words. I'd love that we're recording this. Japan. Everybody's going to Japan.
Japan has been on my list forever.
See?
And here's why. When I was bartending, we'd have the day shift and we'd get a lunch rush and it'd just be like, you'd have a barfly in there or something like that. It was a restaurant. It was a Bennigan's. I don't know. Anybody out there remembers Bennigan's?
Yeah.
You do.
I do.
And so we had ESPN on, and during those times they would play like, the Grand Master sumo wrestling. I love sumo wrestling.
Yeah.
Love it. And so, but that's a trip for me.
Right.
Like, I'm not taking my 14 and 10-year-old, let's go see sumo.
Well, here's the good news. I'm telling you, it's plugged into our algorithms. You're going. You're going, buddy.
It's happening.
You're going.
It's happening. But, really, my wife, and I might have mentioned this the last time I was on, in our marriage, like, generally, if my wife loves to do something, I let her do it.
Yeah.
And she, even though it's kind of like a labor of love, she loves to plan all this stuff. We're going to go to this airport because they've got the best clam chowder, or we're going here, blah, blah. We're going to have a 2-hour layover in San Francisco. I'm like, why? And she's like, because we'll never get that connecting flight. We'll miss it, and then blah, blah, blah. So, you know, she does all that. She did all the Airbnb stuff. We're not staying at a resort. We're staying at like a little, you know, condominium, something like that.
That's
so,
cool.
Yeah, we got a view of the beach. We're not far away from a really stellar beach, so I'm excited. My girls are extremely excited.
That's
Gonna
cool.
do a luau. We don't have
Of
a
course.
ton. We don't have a ton planned. We've got a luau and we've got zip lining. That's it. We're gonna be there.
Zip lining terrifies me.
We're gonna be there 9 days. We only have 2 things planned, so we're just
That's
gonna
a
kind
good
of
amount
like
of time. That's
figure
cool.
it out. We're just gonna kind of figure it out. So
Right on.
It should be fun.
Well, I hope when you come back, you are refreshed and ready to crush it.
It's gonna be, you know, part of this is it's a 9-hour flight to get there. So I'm gonna have a lot of time to like redo a lot of things and do all that. But yeah, I'm chomping at the bit right now. Chomping at the bit because I moved here in 92 and I've never not had a job. So there was only 2 weeks when I wasn't actively working. And those were the first 2 weeks that I was here. And I had a job in construction. I was just waiting for it to start. You know, my roommates are like, is this guy going to work? Is he going to be able to pay his bills? You know?
Yeah.
But then it's just been like, you know, job after job after job. In fact, I was telling somebody this, and I was dating this girl, and she was like, maybe we should take a trip to Cancun, like a cruise or something. And I was like, I got to work on Saturday. She's like, what? You know, and now I'm like, I wish I would have taken that cruise. Would have been such a good time. You know?
Well,
now I'm like, all right, like I'm forcing myself not to work, you know, to work. Well, I'm working. I'm just working on other things, you know.
I think now's a good time to take a vacation when we're in this business because, you know, when it picks back up, that's when you're not allowed to take a vacation.
Exactly.
I've always said this business, you know, people are like, I want a work-life balance. It's like this business will give you a work-life balance whether you like it or not.
It's true. It's true. And, yeah, I kind of, a mentor of mine last year when things seemed like they were getting rough, 4-month vacation.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't do it. And I mean, like, gone, like, went back to the homeland, left to a different continent. And I was like, man, that's a good plan. And so I had this really good, you know, beginning of the year and was like, all right, this is going to be my vacation. But like I said, I'm still working to try to get things, you know, into place, like your interview with Ian Grimes. Ian, if you're out there, man, good job.
He's a good one, yeah.
Open houses, you know, open houses. That's all I did all last year. And it paid off, man, I think. And before I came here, I was with a client. They had bought a property and they're turning into an Airbnb and they wanted me to take a look at it. And, I mean, it looks fantastic. And I was telling them that, you know, like I said, the open houses, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, yeah, there's something. You can sit behind a computer. You can make phone calls. But she's like, being in front of somebody is like the best position to be.
Yeah.
Even if they don't want your service.
Yeah. That's what killed me during COVID. You know, I think that there were a lot of people for a short period of time, at least, that were kind of excited about it. You know, like, oh my gosh, I don't have to, you know, drive in the car and go to an open house and do all of these things. Like business can be done. And I think there was a little bit of excitement. But even the ones that were excited, I don't get me wrong, there's some outliers out there that are really upset that I think we've learned that, you know, it really is about that connection.
It is.
I mean, that's what this podcast is about. Yeah. And to your point with Ian, I mean, it's like, it's not just doing the open house, it's doing open houses correctly.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
But I want to get back to, you mentioned servicing your clients better. What's that look like?
Well, you know, pricing evaluations. You know, like when I first got in, I thought, this is what an agent contracts and knowing, predictive analysis. What's the house going to be worth? What I didn't realize then was that we were in a seller's market. And generally, if you had any kind of formula to getting the house priced, probably going to sell. You know? And now we're not in. And
You're
so
talking more about the listing side right now, right?
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay, go on.
It doesn't matter. And here's why it doesn't matter, because I hear a lot of doom and gloom. Oh, it's a down market. I'm like, not for buyers.
Right.
No, it's like a fabulous market for buyers.
agree.
That's what this information is right here. But so I'm hyped up that it's, you know, Like, and even the
There's
first.
a lot of talk that it's about to go away for the buyers,
Well, we'll see what happens. I think.
which means this is the best time for buyers.
Exactly. Well, I think
we're saying
yeah,
the same thing.
I think we're gonna, real estate's a slow burn, so
That's true.
I think we're gonna see this market continue into next year.
I agree.
So,
I would agree with that.
so it's like the time is now, but now is like no.
Yes. I'd say another year.
Yeah, yeah. So price analysis is always a big thing, and I think right now with sellers, I have listings where I was like, it's not going to sell at that. My job is to tell you the truth, not to lie to you just to get the listing. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to waste your time, right, and mine, and then you're mad at me because it didn't sell.
And they hate you. And
well, I don't, it takes a lot. But yeah. You're just at odds, know, and so. So I've been refining that a little bit for the buyer's market, and really the strategies for a buyer. Like, should you make the offer and negotiate, or should you make the offer and pull away, and 2 weeks later come back and present another offer?
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
Which that experiment actually worked. My client had a condo she wanted to buy. I knew they were overpriced. We submitted a lower offer. They rejected it, didn't counter. And we said, okay, we're going to go. We actually sent 2 offers out in that condominium. Both got rejected. One of them actually was really close to where she wanted to be, but the agent didn't. The agent made a mistake, and she was having a hard time getting a hold of her client. And then we had a term that she didn't explain to her client, seller concession, which was a big one.
Yeah.
And so when she came back with the counter, I was like, we can't do anything with this.
Yeah.
Because she's like reading it through, and she's like, oh, there's a seller concession. Yeah, my client's not going to do that. So I knew at that moment, whatever she told me the counter was irrelevant at that point. I was like, go back to your client, figure it out. So then we just pulled both offers. We went and looked at a bunch of other places. And this happens a lot when I'm about to tell you my buyer didn't tell me that that's the condominium she really wanted. Like that was her number one spot. We went all the way to, this is off Neely's Canyon, which is off Spicewood.
Yep.
And we went all the way to Buda and Kyle. And then after 2 weeks, I was like, let's go back to these guys and submit. Which one did you really like? She's like, this one. So submitted, and it got accepted.
Right.
We had some more negotiations to get a new air conditioner in there and stuff like that. But so it worked. I mean, it was, I say like we submitted and that was it. There was still a lot of negotiating, smoothing out. But I think the seller had enough. And we went away. It's like holding a candy in front of a baby and then taking it away if they're like, I don't know,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so strategies like that, like what is going to work with the list agent? What has the list agent done in the past? How have they orchestrated their listings? Which you can find listings that they've done, and then like how often they dropped price, because that's not, most sellers are going to listen to their agent and do the 10K drop or do the 5K or the 50K or 100K, whatever it is. And so, and experienced agents have a pattern that they're going to do that in, and so we can kind of predict what's going to happen.
So really, you're just doing the stalking.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Well, it's
honestly, being a lender is very much like that, where that's what we have to deal with all the time. It's there's a lot more price shopping and everything along those lines, and you look up who the other competition is, and you do all the things, and to your point, what really struck me is how you said, my client saw this first condo but didn't really tell me this is exactly what they wanted. It's kind of crazy how many times, because there's a lot of different ways to structure a loan, right?
Yeah.
And you ask people like, well, what do you really, and it's, I don't understand why people just can't come right out and say what they want.
Yeah.
Because then, if you do it one way and they're like, well, this is what I really want. It's like, well, let's do that.
Well, you know what I think for lenders, if you run into a good, and no offense to car salesmen or saleswomen, but they can structure that loan. Like it's really crazy how they can like add more money.
Oh yeah.
That the buyer pays on the car.
For sure.
And so I think, and I've said this before, maybe even on this pod the last time I was here, like you can buy a car tomorrow. Buying a house tomorrow,
right.
A little bit more preparation to do that. So I think when they run into that loan and then they're like, I think what I think it boils down to is when the client knows that you care about them,
Yes.
you know what you're doing, and you can help them. It's getting that rapport with them,
Mm-hmm.
even as an agent. Like they're still like, and this
Well, that's what
this person was like somebody I've known for 11 years.
Okay.
And she didn't tell me that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I tell my real estate agents. Like my biggest, like, I don't even know what to call it, but the worst thing that agents will do to me sometimes is I'll get a phone call and they'll say, "Hey, I have a buyer. We found a property. We've written an offer. We're under contract, and they're approved with someone else, but they want to get a second opinion." I mean, I almost want to just say no because at the end of the day, that client doesn't know me. They don't trust me. We're up against the clock, and at this point, I'm 100% a commodity, and it's never it just never goes
It just
good.
rarely works out. They're going to take your loan estimate, send it over there. Oh, I can beat that.
It's not even that. I mean, it's just like, at the end of the day, I really haven't provided any value.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? It's funny that you say that because I have at EXP we have and there are other brokerages like this as well. I have access to a bunch of other agents in other states.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get a client in another state, the process of deciding if the agent is competent is on me.
Yeah. Of course,
so what I tell them is, hey, I'm going to get 20 agents wanting this business. I'm going to narrow it down to 3 or 4, and then you're just going to have a talk with them. Don't worry about if they're competent. I kind of give them a rundown of this agent's database. This agent, they're more wholesale. They're this or that, and this is who I think you should go with, from my perspective. But interview them, but don't worry about if they're competent. Just get a rapport with them.
Yeah, you got to.
And whoever you have the best rapport with is probably who you should go with.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
And then I said, but you got to interview all of them because the first one because every agent is like, let me be the first, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
But and so then they think if they're first that it gives them a leg up, and it probably does.
A little bit, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And so I'm trying to get them. I can't make the person if they're like that's her, that's it,
Yeah.
that's who I'm going with. And I tell the others that's what happened. But usually it ends up being a smooth transition. So I think it could be the same way with lenders. Like, well,
yeah, I mean, because again, my ideal situation is I want to get in front of a client when they are, first starting to shop, so that we can kind of go over all the details. We can walk through everything. I try to get really involved in the negotiating process where I'm reaching out to the listing agent, doing all the things. That's how we originally connected.
Right, yeah.
Punch a pass.
And
there's another one I can't remember, but that's where I provide value.
Russ's deal.
That's right.
Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the street.
That's right.
But anyways.
So yeah, I mean, so if you're just calling me and we're like, hey, we're under contract, my buyer wants it's like, I hate that.
I agree. I think it could have been figured out previous. But
well, I mean, I think a lot of times right now, especially in this market, agents just don't want to rock the boat. So when they come with their rocket mortgage approval, they're like, oh, okay, and then let's get you under contract and we'll figure it out.
The way I explain it to buyers, and this will resonate with some of them, right? Buyers and sellers, they're like a jockey on a horse. And they're in this race, and they want to win the race. But they're only going around one time. Okay. The horse, who they're, go fast, go slow, go left, go right, that they're in control of, is everybody involved in the transaction.
Right.
Realtor, lender, inspection, appraisal. They don't have as much, say with, but still part of it. Insurance, title. All of those people.
Any repairs they want to have done.
You want the horse to go faster? What does a jockey normally do? Either kicks or whips or whatever, right? So you want something, you're in control. And that's hard for buyers to understand. Sellers understand a little bit more, probably because they have the goal, they have something to sell.
Right. Well, they've bought before.
Exactly, yeah. And so they have more experience.
Right.
But usually when I explain that, then they kind of understand. And then, like I said on the previous cast, I kind of interview them so that they know, like, how do they want to be represented, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to tell another agent if they don't get everything on this list repaired, or there's not a dollar amount, taken off the sale price, we're walking. If that's not the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if they tell me to do that, I'm like, okay, we're walking. Like, don't put my reputation at risk. I mean, I'll do it, and if they decide to change, then okay. But like,
Right.
there's better ways to negotiate than to say we're leaving the deal if we don't get everything. Right? So how they want to be represented is a big thing for me as well.
Do you find that you've got a lot, maybe not a lot, but do you find that there are people out there that you feel like are just real combative when it comes to like, you know, like let's start the negotiations?
I think
Like where does that come
TV
from? Okay.
has a lot to do with it. They see $1 million listing or even some, flip show. Like my wife put on some A&E show where they flip the house in 24 hours.
Oh, Jesus.
They buy it, then they get all the plumbers, electricians, roofers. Man, they're all sitting out there, and they do it all in 24 hours. And I'm like, this show is ridiculous. But I think when they see how the negotiations go, they think that that's how it's going to be. So I don't want to say that I mirror that with my advice to buyers or sellers. I just want them to know that they're in control. Like, these are the options I think you have. You can choose one. And if they have an option, then like, let's discuss it.
Yeah.
Right. And do that if that's what you want to do.
I like the answer though. It's TV. No, for real. Like
or YouTube or whatever it is.
Again, I deal with the money, so it's even, it's even messier, whatever you want to call it. It's not messy, but you know what I mean. It's it's higher
it's
stakes.
Sticky.
And I get a lot of conversations where, and again, my job is to educate and kind of explain, but there's times where I want to be like, what made you think this was the way to go about doing things?
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
Yeah, the further I got along in my career when it comes to the lender and all these other entities, really, I generally know what's going to happen. But I usually say, hey, let's call Matt.
Yeah.
Let's let Matt answer that question. Like, I think this is what's I think you can do that. Even if it's a yes. I'm like, I think you might be able to, but there could be something else involved. Like, like if you're weighing stuff out, you take something off this end, whoop, this end's going to go down. Like, it could adjust something else, especially with, credit cards or something like that. Like, should I pay this all off? No.
That's usually not a good idea. Tell me more about the pricing stuff, though, where you're servicing clients, you're kind of talking about pricing. So
this came out from ABOR. I assume, although it doesn't say it here on here, I'm thinking it came from Claire Knapp, the economist. And you can take a look at it.
Yeah.
So MFI is the, oh man, I had this. MFI is the family income. I forgot what the M stands for.
Yeah. Median.
There you go.
Median
So
family income,
it's showing through the year, through the quarters, how as prices were high, the volume of let's say $60,000 income. If the whole the husband makes 30, the wife makes 30, 60,000.
Right.
Could you afford? What's that percentage? And you can see there down at the bottom, like it is an incredible time to buy. Now, it doesn't say, hey, you can only buy in Gerald. Or you can only buy here. Those are the things that you would need to dig deeper on. But it's showing through data.
You have a lot of options.
And so I talk to a lot of buyers that I'll buy next year. And I'm like, I know we're just coming out of the the crash. It's 2012. Should really look at this. And then 2013 comes by. I'm going to buy next year. I'm going to buy next year. I'm going to buy next year. Now it's 2020 through 2022 was like, I wish I would have bought in 2015. And so your wish has come true. It's happening right now through next year. We've got almost 18,000 listings and only 7,700 buyers,
I just think about the joke that the client in 2021 or 2022 that didn't want to purchase because they thought prices were too high, right?
Yeah.
Now we're basically back to where those prices were, and they still don't want to buy.
Still want to buy.
But what I've identified, and this is just to shed some light, is like being part of the financing side of things, right? When someone's like, I'll buy next year, if I can get them and strip them down, get the credit and everything like that. One of the biggest things that I've identified that people don't want to buy, it's really about lifestyle.
I can see that, yeah.
And so I've had a lot of talks lately where I'm at the age now, so I'm 41, right? And I've been doing this for 22 years. So there were times when I was 18, 19 years old, like giving financial advice to people where it felt weird. You know,
Yeah.
like I knew what I was talking about, and I'd done the steps and, you know, put in the reps and everything like that. But now I'm older to where, like, in addition to knowing that I know what I'm talking about, I'm also of an age where a lot of my clients now are a lot younger than me.
Yeah.
And I have had a lot of, like, what I call, like, dad talks where, you know, there's like two types of buyers right now that both don't own homes, right? There's buyers that can't buy, and there's buyers that can.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here to tell you that about 80% of the buyers that can buy that are reluctant to buy, they make comments like, I don't know if it's the right time to buy, or interest rates are high, or da-da-da-da, whatever, you know, insert, like, smart answer.
Yeah.
When I really dig and I start having these conversations, it's all about, I don't want to give up, like, I mean, this is an extreme, but like bottle service on West 6th.
Sure, yeah.
I don't want to give up, you know, this, or
or they want to live in O2, but can't afford
well, sure,
what they
there's
want
always
in
that.
O2.
Right.
They can't afford to live where their lifestyle is at.
Yeah. And so
Don't want to give up bottle service. I love it.
Yeah, dude, I tell this short story. I tell it almost 2 or 3 times a week to somebody who is under 35 years old. I say, listen, I'm at an age right now, I'm a lot older than you, where I purchased my first house when I was 25 years old. And at that time, and I always say there's different times, so the numbers I'm going to give you are a little different. I required that I did not have a mortgage payment over $1,000 a month. And I went ahead and I purchased a property, and it was a flip, and it wasn't a flip, it was a, what am I trying to say? Where you're going to rehab it or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy it.
An updater.
I'm going to live in it while I update it. So I purchased this property, and it was, you know, it wasn't a total shithole, but it was very used. And I purchased this property, and I had an $800 payment. You know, $1,000 was my max. But the reality was that I probably could have afforded something closer to $1,200 to $1,500.
Yeah.
And I look back on that, and I did very well on the property. I owned it for 8 years, and I sold it, and I made like $110,000. You know, it was great. I bought it for $57,000, like made $100,000. But at the end of the day, the appreciation is all based on percentages.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would have purchased a more expensive home, I would have made more money. And I said,
you might have made $150.
Right, exactly. And I said, so that $800 payment that I could have juiced all the way up to maybe even like $1,200, that $400 delta, you know what I did with it?
Bottle service.
And women
the
and
good life. Right?
Women and dinners, man. Like, I did not park that in a savings account where I accumulated.
Women are beautiful. Why wouldn't you want to spend money on women, right?
But the point is that if you, Mr. 27-year-old, just got our first job, and I can totally afford a $500,000 home, but I'm trying to figure out a way to keep my payment at $2,000 a month. If you're going to tell me that the $2,000 that you're paying on your rent right now and the $3,000 that you're going to pay to buy this home, if you're going to tell me that you're going to take that $1,000 every single month and you're going to put it in a savings account and you're not going to touch it,
invest in an index or something.
Sure. You're going to tell me that that's what you're going to do for the next 2 or 3 years while you're waiting to time the market, and you're going to come out with $25,000, $30,000 for the down payment on your home when you decide it's the right time to buy, then I can totally respect that. But I'm here to tell you, I will bet the farm that you won't do that. And you know what they all do? I swear to God, 10 out of 10 of them basically go, you fucking got me.
Yeah. I believe it.
It's like, I can see you can afford this.
Yeah.
It's not that you can't afford this. You don't want to make lifestyle changes that would be required to do in order for you to become an adult and purchase a property and, you know, reap appreciation at, even at a low amount, 3 to 5% on $500,000 year over year.
Yeah.
And they're like,
so they do it? Do they do it?
I would say 10 out of 10 agree and admit, and 8 out of 10 do it, and the other 2 will go, well, fuck you, I'm going to bottle service.
Come with me.
Yeah. One of the guys did come back. We just closed on him this year, but I had that conversation with him last year, and he admitted it, and he's like, you know what, man, I'm young, and I still want to whoop it up. And I was like, at least you're being honest.
Exactly.
At least you're being honest.
Yes.
So quit acting like, oh, the market's not right. Oh, the rates are high. Oh, the property. No, you're making all my agents crazy. They're coming in here and talking about, because they don't get to see I get to see you financially naked,
Exactly.
right?
You get to peek under the skirt.
Exactly, because all the agents are like, "Oh, it's this big." I mean, all the clients are like, "It's this big." It's never that big, right?
Yeah.
And that is the luxury that I get. That's why I tell agents, I'm like, "Get them over to me. Let me have a conversation because I have the unique opportunity to break everybody."
Yeah.
And then we figure it out. And neither you're either lying to me or
you want bottle service.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's
exactly.
cool. And that's what I tell them. I'm like, if just be honest.
Yeah.
So
Let's not waste any time.
Yeah.
Let's either get to it or put it off. And I'm with you. Timing the market is extremely hard. In fact,
it's impossible.
if you try to time the market, it's, like you said, impossible.
No,
but if you just get in the market, you've actually timed the market.
It's truly impossible to time the market because no one knows what the future will hold.
Yeah.
It is 100% impossible. No one can do it. The only way you time the market is that you look back in retrospect and say, look at me.
Yeah.
Look at me.
I did it.
Because the one thing that I always talk about was in 2020, right? Here we have interest rates in like the 2s and 3s, and people are purchasing properties, and they're making offers, over asking, appraisal gap waiver, everything like that. I go to all my closings, right?
Awesome.
And I can't get over the amount of people that I was sitting across the table from that they're closing on their home, and they didn't look happy. They were like, they're like, I just feel like I kind of overpaid for this property. Like, it only appraised for $500,000, and it turns out we're under contract for $550,000, and they're like, I just don't know if we made the right decision, right? But then I do annual reviews for every single client on their like anniversary or whatever. Oh, I can think of people specifically that I was sitting across from that basically you would have thought that I stole their freaking lunch when they're closing, right? That now when I call them and we go over their appreciation and everything, it's like they have amnesia.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I really bought a good time. I got a
killed
2.75% interest rate. My property value went up $250,000. I knew it. I just fucking knew it. And I'm like,
I killed it.
You wanted to jump across the closing table and choke me out, I felt like. You wanted to kill me. So I see that as well. And so, again, the timing the market thing is impossible to do because you never know until, and sure, you can pat yourself on the back and say, like, I had a gut feeling. I knew it. But, like, no, you didn't.
Yeah, if you buy now and it turns out to be a good purchase, like, okay, great. Gut feeling, but the data's there. Like, you can always change your interest rate.
That's true.
You can never change what you bought it at.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, similar story, when I first started in this business, I was a big refinance guy, and I started in the business in 98. So in 2009, after the '08 crash, during the whole HARP, Obama did the whole HARP thing where you could refinance without an appraisal because so many people were underwater, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember people being like, oh my gosh, my house isn't even worth what I thought it was, or excuse me, what I paid for it. I'm underwater on this. I want to lower my rate. And we did all these refinances. And again, following back up with all these clients, it's like they had amnesia. The guy who's like, oh, I bought this thing for $500,000. It just appraised for $450,000. This is bullshit. I got screwed, right? So now this is in '09.
Yeah.
Like, that guy calls me in like 2013, 2014, and he's like, hey, we're ready to sell. And he's, bragging about his like FU equity that he has.
Right.
And this was the same guy that like, basically was telling me that like the game's rigged,
Everybody's making money off me.
I got screwed.
Yeah.
And
that happened to me. In 2006, I bought my first house. And in 2006, I bought my second house. And my agent called me. He's like, you want to buy another house? I was like, I don't know. Will they loan me money? Yeah.
In '06? Hell yeah, they will.
Yeah. And so I bought a second one. And then the second one, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a long flip. I'm just going to rent it out, let it appreciate, and then I'll sell like 10 years from now. Then the crash happened, all of that. So at one point, I think I bought it for $116, and I got the praised value was at like 90.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't know any additional funds.
Right.
So we'll just let it roll and keep it renting. And we sold it for, what did we sell it for? We sold it for $190 in 2017. So yeah, I felt like I did all right.
So you could say you just timed the market.
I just timed the market.
You knew it, man. You are genius. So there it is for all of y'all. Sean Fuentes knows how to time the market. Take his advice, listen to him.
Time.
Don't ask questions.
Well, you know what? And I think what you're saying is the other part of that. It's not timing the market; it's time in the market. Right?
Yeah.
You got to be in the market, and then because if you're not in the market, you don't see the deal, or you don't have somebody saying, "Hey, this house is worth $2 million. I bet you can get it for 1.5." You know,
Yeah.
something like that. And that's there's access to data. Like if you had the data and you were just looking at it all the time, you probably could come up with that. It's not rocket science. But when you're not evaluating the market or the data, then you don't have, you're not in the market. You're just kind of like looking on some website, something like that, Zillow or Home Search or whatever it is. You're not getting all of the data.
I think the harder one is someone who currently owns a home but just wants a nicer one. That's more of a debatable thing. And so my line has been to that client, nobody needs a Porsche.
Maybe.
Well, hang on. Hear me out. So, like, you didn't ride your bicycle here, right?
Yeah.
Right? You drove.
I drove.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if we were totally being as logistical about everything that we do in our lives, we could really get rid of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Like, I didn't walk here. I didn't take the bus. I didn't ride a bike. I drove a car.
Didn't do a scooter.
Right.
None of that
And then
stuff.
from there, like, I don't drive like a Kia.
Yeah.
Right? So going all the way to like the upper echelon of automotives, like no one needs a Porsche.
Yeah. No one needs a Bugatti.
Right. And so when I tell people, listen, I feel like what's happening right now is that you're looking at real estate, you own a home, you've got this really low interest rate, and you want something nicer, and you can afford something nicer, and it's going to be more expensive than what you're currently at right now, and you're trying to figure out a logistical way to make sense of this.
Yeah.
You don't want to make a mistake. And they're like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, can you imagine if we did that for everything? And they're like, yeah, I guess you're kind of right. I'm like, if you can afford it and you want it, like do you even need the house you're in? Do you even need the house you're in right now?
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Because like
we're in way bigger now.
Yeah,
bigger
I could
house.
probably get away with like 600 square feet.
Yeah,
It's just me and Nina.
Yeah.
Like we have rooms we don't walk
300
into.
of it being the closet. Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, furthermore, don't need all those clothes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So like stop taking this whole thing with real estate and treating it as if it's something that has to be like completely logistical, because I'd say 90% of what I do every day requires no logic, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And then they kind of go, all right, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. Like, can you afford it? Yeah. Do you want it? Yeah. Does it make sense? No. And so does a lot of the shit that you do.
Right. The
Right?
bottle service.
Bottle service.
Doesn't make sense.
Don't need that.
Doesn't make sense.
So that's the other thing I've been telling, because I think that took me a long time to kind of like think about.
Yeah.
Because the first time home buyer, I mean, I even said it, I've been saying it for 3 years now. I'm like, if you don't own a home and you don't live with your parents, because that's the only rebuttal. Hey, I live rent free.
Yeah.
That's a tougher debate. But I was saying, if you don't own a home and you're renting, come at me. I would love to debate anybody. Call me. I want you to explain to me why you don't need to buy a home.
Yeah.
And that one was an easy one. But then the people who were like, well, I'm living in a home and I have a low rate, that one was tough for me. But that was my rebuttal.
That makes sense.
You can use that.
Yeah, I will.
It works
I will.
because people kind of go, you know
And I'll
what?
say, if you don't believe me, talk to Matt.
There it is. Well, and sometimes you just
Don't
have to
believe
tell
me.
people things they kind of already know, but they're
Yeah.
just like, you know what? You're right. Like, I can afford this place. I do want it. And it makes completely no logistical sense. And if I'm going to try to put logic to it, then I'll never do
You'll
it.
never do it. It's just like me in the vacation. Actually, I had the hours, I had the money.
Yeah,
It
that's a
would
great
have been
example.
Easy to go on that vacation, right? I think it's part of it is like the programming we grow up with, right? And I'll give an example of my programming, right? That I've gotten rid of. My dad hated banks. And he hated banks. I found out later, not because he hated banks, because my grandparents hated banks.
Yeah.
And or my great-grandparents hated banks. And they hated banks because at some point, I read up on this, but it's been a while. Everybody put their money in banks and then they all crashed and they never got their money back. So from that moment on, it was like in a sock, under the pillow, under the bed, no more banks. And so I always had this negative point of view on banks, and then it's like, well, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but that kind of programming with people, like, do I deserve this?
I think that's what it is. I think you just nailed it.
You just kind of grow up thinking, I don't deserve a Porsche. I know I make $500K a year, but I don't deserve it. You know, like flogging yourself. Ugh,
that's exactly what it is. I'll get deep on you. I think a lot of people do that in relationships.
Definitely. Self-sabotagers.
Well, I'll get a little personal here without naming names, but, you know, I think about the term unconditional love, right? And I think that conditional love only exists between like a mother and a child, right? Because all relationships... Unconditional, excuse me.
Yeah.
Because all relationships are conditional, right?
Yeah.
No matter what. And I was always raised to think like, well, if you love somebody, then like it's gonna work. That like
you can, yeah.
Right.
Nobody likes a quitter.
That's right. and so going back to like the thing that you said about, you know, do I deserve
the programming,
it, right? The programming, where I think a lot of people, you know, have that like, I don't deserve this. Like I should be happy with what I have.
Exactly.
And I related that to the love thing because I think a lot of people do that in relationships where it's like, listen, I care about this person very much. I'm not happy, but therefore I'm
not a quitter either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that programming of like, I don't deserve this is why you try to put logistical things to your spending that, I mean, don't get me wrong. You can't go crazy and think you can just buy whatever you want.
Sure.
But if it's affordable and you want it, I think people talk themselves out of things because they feel like they don't deserve it.
All the time. Yeah.
It's kind of a bummer.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, I think, you know, you've worked on it, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And life will eventually make you work on it sometimes. You know, I used my brother as an example. And I know other people that, like yourself, they were married, they got divorced, and they're with somebody, no plans on getting married, no plans on not being with anybody else the rest of their lives. And I think they're happier because not because they're not married, they just have this, they figured it out, right? They figured out that the marriage, maybe the first marriage defines them a little bit more than what was needed. But also I think you grow from those, or maybe you don't grow, but some people grow from from positive and negative experiences, right?
Yeah.
Just living life, they kind of, you know, they grow. And I agree with you with the unconditional love. I think a father can have unconditional love for their babies and their kids. Once the kids start talking, then it becomes conditions. You know, you can't have the popsicle unless you clean up your room, you know, that kind of thing. And that's not necessarily love, but you've got to, if you love your kids, you're going to raise them.
Of course.
You're going to try yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and all of those things. Etiquettes, all that stuff. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
So I think the moral of the story is, to apply it to real estate, is that a lot of the things that people are making excuses and all the graphs and everything along those lines, people purchase based on emotion at the end of the day.
100%. Emotion makes them act.
Yep. And I think that it is important that we keep up with the stats and we look at the things and we talk about the appreciation and everything like that. But I did a clip a few years ago. I said, I'm so tired of trying to convince buyers about all the benefits. Just buy it for your kid or your dog.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Your dog deserves a fenced-in backyard.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be in that apartment.
Exactly.
You sicko.
Yeah. He just poop outside when he wants. No, I agree. And yeah, I think that's a great summation of the desire. You know, I think that emotion does make people do things. And I think for me as an agent, you want people to be emotional about it. Like when I take buyers out, I know when they're really locked in on the house. Mm-hmm. When they say, oh, our couch would fit there. Or would our couch fit there? You know, or this is my part of the closet, this is yours. When they start talking like they're living there already, then I know doesn't mean they're going to buy it, but I do try to, in my business, I try to have some restraint when it comes to their emotion. Mm-hmm. I don't want somebody to buy something and then, well, Sean pushed us to buy it. Yeah. You know? No, yeah. So even though that's happened sometimes, you know, I had a client who I said, look, we should get this, we should get this tank. What is it? The septic tank. I was like, we should get this septic tank inspected. And he was like, nah, I don't want to do that. It's fine. This, that he named like 10 different reasons why we weren't going to do it. I said, fine. And then they bought it. They moved in. A couple months later, they had it inspected, or something happened. They had it pumped or something. And the guy was like, you didn't have this inspected? And then my client calls me and he's like, why didn't we get this inspected? Or we should have gotten it inspected. And I was like, well, we should have. But you didn't want to, so we didn't.
Right.
And I hate having those conversations. Part of me wants to like sign this where it says you don't want an inspection. But, you know, I don't think that's a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
It's a little weird.
It is weird.
You might as well just follow yourself with a camera.
Record everything.
Right? Like those dash cams. You just need like a realtor dash cam.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine?
Crazy. Well, okay, so I'm shifting gears. I told Matt about this, and one of the reasons why I wanted to come back on.
Yeah.
First time I was here, we had talked about Trump and if he had said something in the first part, in his inaugural speech, I had a prediction that the market would do well. It kind of came true a little bit.
Yep.
But I think the next part of it is now that the market is where it's at, and you know, Trump is having his boy Pulte like hammer away that the Fed rate be cut.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think is going to happen there?
Me personally?
Yeah. What do you think? Because I don't have enough time to like follow all the politics.
Oh, it's like all I do.
Produce this data. You know, I didn't produce the data, but analyze this data or produce other data and just, you know, advise my clients. So I kind of like, I follow it, but I don't dive deep into it.
So Jerome Powell's up for, you know, the Fed chair in general is up for whatever you want to call it, election in the next year. And based on what I've seen from Jerome Powell over the last 3 to 5 years, he's not swayed in any way by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I've even gone to the extent of doing a little bit of research in terms of like how he grew up. This is Jerome Powell.
Yeah.
How he grew up, how he was raised. Both of his parents are attorneys. I even believe his grandfather was an attorney. They were raised Jesuit. And so the point I'm trying to make in all of this is like these are people that have like really hard-nosed values.
Firm conviction.
Correct. And Jerome Powell made it very clear that he was not going to cut the Fed funds rate until it reached 2%.
Yeah.
We're close, but we're not there. What I would predict is that, so here's the other piece that I think is interesting. There's a lot of talk now that there's a couple of Fed chairmen that are basically saying, hey, we know Powell's on his way out. Why don't we go ahead and hold this election early?
Wow.
Not to get him out, but just have the election so that the people know.
So investors, people will know what's coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
leaking.
Right. There's been a lot of talk about that. The only reason that I bring that up is because barring that, I do not anticipate that we will see a rate cut this year.
Really?
Yeah. If that were to happen, it wouldn't create a rate cut, but it would create movement in the market where mortgage-backed securities and things like that, you could start to see them come down because there's more than just one or two levers that involve mortgage rates.
Yeah.
Right? The Fed fund rate is a piece of the puzzle. It is not the entire puzzle.
Right.
So just because the Fed, I mean, hypothetically, the Fed can cut rates and mortgage rates can still not go down.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
In fact, normally the day after, they go up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I do not anticipate seeing a Fed rate cut this year. And even if I was being hopeful, which I am, I would say that the earliest that we would see a rate cut would be November.
Interesting. Yeah. Fannie Mae revised their prediction. They were at 5.9, then they went to 6.2 was the last thing I read. So everybody's kind of falling in that line where they're not expecting anything to happen.
Well, here's the other thing I think is important to think about, and I've been talking a lot about this lately. If you remember, in 2020 and 2021, when interest rates got into like the high 2% range, do you remember what rates were before they were in the high 2% range?
I don't.
And this is what's interesting. Not only do you not remember, but 99% of the population doesn't remember. And the reason that it's important is because we didn't drop down to 2% off of like a 6% interest rate. We were getting people like 3.75, 3.875, 4%. So the reduction that we saw during COVID and in that period of time when rates were low was about a 1 to 1.25% reduction in the rate. And that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? And so what I think is important that the average consumer understands is that even when we start to see interest rates come down, and even if we had something, God forbid, catastrophic, where interest rates were going to just plummet, something like a COVID, you're not going to see, right now we're at about 6.5%. You are not going to see rates go from 6.5% to like 4.5%. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that would be catastrophic.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that everybody understand that if you're waiting on interest rates and you're waiting on rates to go down, I think you need to be realistic in regards to what your strike point is what we call it in my business. And I think a realistic strike point is like 5.5, 5.75, which would be great.
I agree. That's kind of where all the reading that I've done is like, it's a pipe dream to think we'll be at 4.9.
Correct.
Right.
I think that'll be the new, like, you get a little bit of concessions and everything. You get your 4.99, you go to the bar with your boys and you beat your chest and tell them how smart you are.
Exactly. You get your
I
bottle
got a rate with the
service and
4.
you're ready to roll.
There's always that asshole that wants that 4.99.
I know.
Can't be 5. It's like, all right.
5.5 would be amazing in the next coming years,
But here's the thing that I think
but
is
low
important.
6s 5 I think would move the needle as well.
I think you're going to be unpleasantly surprised when that rate comes.
Yeah.
That the average consumer is not going to be satisfied with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember there was a guy that I was doing negotiations with in 2020 on it was a 15-year term, and I offered him a 1.99%. And you know what he said to me? He said, "Well, I've been hearing that I might be able to get a 1.875."
Oh my gosh.
But like the point is like at the time we had 3.875 and probably 3.5 for like a 15-year term.
Those were like the lowest rates in the history. Am I right on that?
Yeah.
We've never really seen rates that low.
So now we see an interest rate drop where if you think about it from the average consumer, they're looking at it like, well, this 1.99, 6 months ago it was 3.5. So like I'm only picking up 1.5%. But when we talk about it, you're basing it on where the rates are today.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is the bane of my existence. 22 years in this industry, watching interest rates like it's my favorite TV show.
Yeah.
If rates go to 5.5%, and they will, I'm confident of that, but it will, number one, will not happen overnight. And number two, when it does, it'll be like, well, I mean, that's only 1% less than what it was last year.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And
then that'll be your new complaint. Like, well, rates are still high, Sean. You're like, dude. And then we put out charts about affordability. 1% on a $500,000 property, you just are able to pick up $750 in monthly savings. Or now you could buy a $750,000 home today where you only were able to buy like a $500,000 home yesterday. And they're going to go, it's not enough.
Yeah, right.
Just not enough.
Well, I think that mindset goes back to the programming.
Yeah.
Like there's something it's not about the rate. It's not about any of that. It's about something else that they don't do it. Because we get down to the 6, let's say in November, and really like you said, the Fed rate, when they cut the rate, it's not going to.
Oh, it's going to take 6. It'll be 6 months.
And there's going to be, now the mortgage rate will be, in my estimation, when things start leaking, because this is what happened last year, so if history repeats itself, even in the short term, we saw Trump got elected, and then there was all this talk, or the election was happening, of them dropping rates, like, hey, we're going to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. Then they did it. I think it was September, or was it November the last time they cut? Let's call it September.
Yeah, I think it was September.
Let's call it September. So September, then there was this Google search for how does the Fed rate affect mortgage rates?
Yep.
What are mortgage rates like? It was the highest it had ever been. And so we're not seeing that now.
It
Right?
was all done by realtors.
Probably. But we also had
Like, do I have a job today?
we also had a really good first 4 months.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of that was people like getting ready to buy. I looked at, mortgage applications down, 0.04, So there aren't a lot of people applying for applications, which to me is like, man, it's a super, not only is there a lot of sellers, there aren't a lot of buyers. And
Right.
so if you're thinking about buying, like, it's really like people are buying, like you have your choice of whatever you want. You can name your price almost. And if they don't want to buy, you can buy the house next door.
I've been saying this for a long time. You ever seen the, what is it, like Animal Planet or like any of those animal shows where they follow the migration of the wildebeest?
Yeah.
And then finally they get to the Nile River, right? And when the first 1,000 wildebeest get to the Nile River, they stop. And they kind of go like, fuck, we got to cross this big-ass river. There's no crocodiles. None. They keep backing up, like the amount
everybody's
of them
coming forward.
backing up, right?
Yeah.
They're there for almost like an hour or two before they cross because, for whatever reason, they're trying to time the market. But now, all these crocodiles,
all the gators are coming in.
And then finally, that one jackass goes, right? And then they all just go. But if they would have just started crossing the Nile right when they got there, there was 2 hours of no crocodiles.
Wow.
You see what I mean?
I do.
And
I do.
It's that herd mentality where, again, it goes back to don't get me wrong, I understand that interest rates were super duper low in 2020 and 2021, but the feeding frenzy that was associated with home buying, in my opinion, did not have to do with low rates because we only reduced interest rates by 1%. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But it was you got to buy now. It's what do you mean? Property value. And it's I've said this. I wish I could just call all the dads, the inspector. I just want to call everyone's dad and say, hey, why don't you guys make the announcement? Because for whatever reason, my dad says, it doesn't matter what we say.
Yes.
But but in my analogy, now is the time to cross the Nile if you are a wildebeest.
Yeah.
Because when a bunch of them start crossing, the crocs are going to show up, and a lot of you are going to get eaten up.
I agree. I think we're going to see mortgage rates, applications pick up towards the end of the year. For whatever reason, the hot part of the market isn't going to be hot, and we're just going to see. And the reason why I think that is we're in this transition, and the transition is kind of like what you just mentioned. Your dad talking about it. Mm-hmm. Your neighbor tried to sell their house. It didn't sell, but you're renting, and you're just watching all of this wow, that house didn't sell. Why didn't it sell? It was a beautiful home, And so then sellers are going to start talking, wow, the market's, there's not a whole lot of buyers out there. And I think it'll eventually, and again, real estate, slow burn. I still think we're going to have a great end of the year, which will lead into a good beginning of the year. And like you said, November is when we think the rate could get cut again. So and if they have this election really early, then people will know, investors will know what's going on. I think the other thing between Powell and Trump is they both are saying something, and they're both quasi working on the thing that the other one is saying, right? Trump is saying lower the rates, right? And Powell is like, well, we're data-based, and the data is saying not to do it, right? But one of the reasons why we can't do it is because of tariff uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and so Trump's like, well, I'm working on this tariff thing,
Yeah.
And so for me, the tariff thing is, when I think of Trump and he's the art of the deal and all of that, it's not you put the tariff out and then that's it. You walk away and go get bottle service, right?
Right.
It's a negotiation. We're gonna put a tariff on your widgets. What happens? What happens? At least I hope this is what's happening when they do it. Put the tariff on China or whoever, Canada, on widgets, and then they're starting to collect information about what happens with everybody else. Does some company start to provide widgets to America that's in America, right? A U.S.-born company. And so then they pull back because that didn't happen. And then they start to, they're jockeying continuously So I'm not sure that the tariff thing is going to get figured out this year. You know,
I would agree. I mean, based on what you just mentioned and in terms of predictions, I don't think we are going to see anything super exciting until like mid 26, even into 27.
Now I have a tariff story. A friend of mine, not a client, spoke with her 2 days ago, and her and her husband. We know them, our kids at the same dance school, and so her and her husband were thinking about buying another home in the same neighborhood because they wanted a bigger home. And finally, they were just like, we don't want to spend that kind of money, and we don't want to move further out to get a bigger home. So they ripped the roof off their current home and put a second story and just completely remodeled it.
Nice.
And so I was there picking up my child. And so I was talking to her about her business. And her business is she provides cabinets, cabinet pulls, just a lot of kitchen and bathroom stuff for apartment complexes.
Yeah.
So if you're building an apartment complex or refurbishing, she has all of the, everything. You mean you could build your own house with the stuff that she provides or she sells. So, okay, let's get to the tariff part. I said, hey, how are things going? And she's like, well, the tariffs we weren't sure what was going to happen. And so we have stuff on order that's sitting in China. We just had some stuff sent over because they did the renegotiation where they were going to push tariffs out and then, start to negotiate again, right? Which could have been the plan all along, right? For Trump, we don't know. And so she shipped some stuff over, but they're not shipping it all over, right? Because they're not sure what's going to happen. So that story kind of makes it seem like the tariffs are a bad thing. We have these local businesses that aren't doing local business because they're scared of the tariffs. Yeah. But when I started talking to her about the shipping, she was like, well, there's so few containers being shipped that we saved a bunch on the shipping. And if there was a tariff, we likely would have broken even, right? So is the tariff working? Maybe. Is it not working? I don't know. So we're still in this like flux zone. And that's one story. I'm sure bigger companies, I've heard on radio shows where companies are like, well, the tariff actually hit us hard because we paid China for all this aluminum stuff, these tubes or whatever it is. We already paid them. And so now we have to pay the tariff once it gets to the bay to get it off the boat. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. So, but I think there's probably going to be these positive and negative and in the middle stories until it really gets figured out. So hopefully Trump will, if it's a lever system, like if the tariffs get defined and everybody knows what's going to happen going forward, to me, even if that's negative and has a negative effect on American companies, right? That's still better than not knowing what's going to happen.
Well,
it's kind of like rates last year. Like it went all the way up to
business.
8, went all the way up to 8, then it's down to like 6, 9, and it was like, gosh, can we just settle on one?
Right. It was the uncertainty.
Right.
I mean, that was 2023 was all about the year of uncertainty where, that's what everyone was saying. They're like, if we could just settle on a rate, if you told me that rates were going to be 7%, you could guarantee that for 3 years, then I'd just buy today. But, today it's 7.
But it could be at 5. It could be at 5.9 tomorrow,
Yeah, I think.
Even though that wouldn't happen.
But, and again, that goes back to time in the market. I mean, everything that we do in business is all about it's all about trying to figure out the uncertainty, right?
Yeah. And I think, let's talk new construction because there's a lot of inventory in new construction. And so you have like D.R. Horton and Lennar that are still like, let's be incentive-based, right? Yeah. Incentive-based where I don't want to say inflate the price,
right? We
but
inflate the price, and bake in a bunch of shit, and convince the client that we are giving them something so we can move inventory.
Exactly. Yeah. So KB stopped doing that. KB Homes.
Oh, no way.
They did away with all their incentives, and they've just lowered their prices. And so a lender friend brought me a deal where they wanted to buy this KB home. So we went in there. KB was giving 10K to use their title company, their lender, and whatever else, which was by some means is a very small amount. They didn't go with the preferred lender.
Wow.
They didn't. They got the same deal without the 10K from the outside lender. So I see movement in that area. I think that, and so there's the KB guys are saying we don't think it's right to. We think buying a KB home at a lower price without incentives will position the homeowner with more equity, better equity down the road if they 100%. Have to sell something along those lines. So I think there's going to be, because now they did that, but they didn't change anything with their preferred lender. They're still a quarter point higher and all of these other things. And so there's an opportunity right now for outside lenders to get in there and get a lot of KB business.
That's interesting. I did not know that. I mean, we've talked a lot about this as far as the new builds, where I'm very concerned, frankly, because, what you're seeing is you're seeing a lot of people that are going in and getting all these incentives, and one of the ways that they do that is they take FHA loans. And you're getting people who are taking on FHA loans who should not take on FHA loans. Mm-hmm. Because they want to get 6% seller concessions with putting less than 10% down. So picture this. You buy a home, you go FHA, you have 3.5% down, right? I bake in 6% seller concessions. There's an upfront mortgage insurance premium that's associated with all FHA loans that gets tacked onto your mortgage of 1.75%. Just to keep the math nice and round, let's call it 2.
Yeah.
Right? So the moment that and so now I've put 3.5% down, right? So we'll take that away. I'm 5% underwater the day that I buy that property. Year over year appreciation, let's call 3 to 5%, right?
3 is what I tell my clients, yeah.
Right. So in a 2-year timeline, I finally break even. Now I'm not going to speak for you, but from my experience, average commission to sell a home is 6%.
7 to get it all done, right?
7 to get it all done. So I'm
not 1% is just like title fees, stuff like that.
And we talk about real estate with the opportunity that it's going to appreciate and you're going to walk away with something and you're not just renting your home.
Yeah.
So 2 years you break even. 2 more years you can't even sell. Year 5, now you've owned this home for 5 years. You can finally sell it and you get nothing. That's a bummer.
It is. Well, you know what? And I think from 2012 through, say, 2023, you could, well, not 2023 because it'd still be 3. There was a period of time where you could do that. You could own for 2 or 3 years, sell, and make a profit. Things were going up steadily.
Not if you bake 6% seller.
Not if you did that.
That's my point.
So
this is the whole point I'm trying to make is that, and I'm battling this quite a bit. I have real estate agents that are leading their sales pitches with, let me explain to you why buying a new home right now is what you should do. Forget about whatever you thought. I'm going to take you to this builder. We're going to get you 6% seller concessions. We're going to buy your interest rate down to 5%. You're not going to get a 5% anywhere else. We're going to get the upgrades, new appliances, everything along those lines. Don't worry that, you're in the middle of fucking nowhere and you have dirt piles everywhere. And don't worry about that, right?
Yeah.
No, but Sean, I'm dead serious. I mean, I could give you names of agents that I've had emails forwarded to me by my clients.
Wow.
That are like the agent and in their defense, they referred the client to me. So
got it.
God bless.
Yeah.
But they're like, this dude is pushing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of fucked up.
And you know what? And that's the thing I try to stay away from. We've talked about this. I've said it earlier and then but pushing clients to do something is always not a good idea.
Right.
Even if they end up doing what you tell them to do. But pushing them, they have to be the ones that are deciding.
Oh, but Sean, they offer warranties. Let me ask you, why the hell do I need a warranty if this house is brand new? Because they're built like shit.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
Right? We know that. Like, we know that there's going to be a foundation plumbing or whatever issue. I mean, some of these new builds that I've been in, it's sad. But hey, we got a warranty for it. Because we know when we slap this thing up so quickly, there's going to be problems.
That is something that working with new construction is something that I think I'm seeing more of,
It
which
bums
is
me out, man.
which is inspections.
Yeah.
Like you have the
Getting an
inspection. When you pay the inspector to do new construction, it's not a one-time thing. If you're building from the ground up, then they inspect pre-drywall, then they inspect after it's
Oh, but
all
they're
said
not
and
giving
done.
seller concessions on the one that's being built. They're giving it on that one that's already up and the walls and the
yeah,
drywall's done, man.
yeah, yeah. I'm with you.
No, dude, it bums me out like a lot, and it's I'm showing my age because I do want to like empathize with some of these agents because I get it. Like you're new in the business, you're trying to get paid, right? We all got to eat.
Yeah.
And in my 20s, I mean, I never did anything illegal, but did I do things that I'm not
You
proud
never got
of?
caught doing anything illegal.
Well, no, I mean work-wise, where like,
No,
yeah,
I
maybe I sold a loan that didn't make sense for a buyer. Like,
Yeah.
am I the pinnacle of truth in
Yeah,
lending? Like,
yeah.
I never did anything that was illegal in lending, but I just don't do that shit anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm just older now, and I see it, and the new build stuff bums me out.
Yeah. I think when it comes to the lender, anybody, when you're the jockey on the horse
Yeah.
and you're picking the horse, you got to ask questions. Like,
Right.
yeah, I said this last time we were on, when buyers go into an open house, interview the agent.
Yeah, for
Doesn't
sure.
mean that you have to like work with them,
Yeah.
find out what they know. And you do that 10 times, you'll say, hey, this guy, everybody said this about the market except for this one guy.
Mm-hmm.
He said something completely different. And maybe he's right? Or she's right. Maybe they're just off the wall crazy, right? But I think that is where I like my clients to be asking questions and finding out more about what's going on. But I'm with you. I think, I think there was the builders they didn't get a bad rep. They were building shoddy houses when supply chain was screwed up. They're trying to throw up these houses like back in 2020, 2021. February would roll. I think it was 2020.
Concrete cancer.
February. Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
I mean,
The
yeah.
pools. I saw that. A client of mine we were looking at this pool and
Real shit.
there was a crack there and you could see where they repaired it. And I was like, I don't know about this one. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just don't like this. I didn't mention the concrete cancer. He didn't push it. I didn't think he liked the house anyway.
Can you explain concrete cancer for those that might not know?
Yeah, so I've read a couple articles on this. Basically, the concrete is failing, and you build this pool with concrete,
Yeah.
and it just starts to turns into brittle. And it's a certain years. I think it's like 2021 through 2024, something like that.
That sounds right.
Something like that. So if you had a pool, it doesn't mean that every pool built in that time has concrete
they can test
cancer.
for it, apparently.
So there's things so there was a lot of builders that were just putting them up. I don't want to, I could name some builders,
Yeah,
but
we don't have to name names.
we don't
but
have to do that because I think to think that every house that was built in that time was horrible is just untrue.
Sure,
I have clients
I agree with that.
I have clients that bought out and dripping and they love their house and they've had zero issues with it at all. I've had clients that, somebody fired a nail through the shower exit or fired a nail through the master bedroom shower and it popped one of the PEX pipes and when they turned everything on it leaked and now the builder took care of the repairs and all of those things, but it's just more of an inconvenience than anything else. I think when we talk about Trump and like let's be real, like is ICE gonna hurt construction? Right? Like are we gonna have less people working on these? Is it gonna create more jobs? Like will somebody say, hey, I want to create a drywall business, right? Can they be knowing what builders pay, which I don't know what they are, but when they get into it, can they say, hey, I could make money drywalling with U.S.-born citizens? Let's just put it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to happen? Is there a space for that? Can you find U.S.-born citizens that will do that work? Probably. So it's an interesting time right now for all of it when we think about those types of things, ICE, and how it's going to affect new build construction, that type of thing. They were already I remember in the 20s, some clients bought in New Braunfels, and that superintendent told me that this had happened to them once, and he had heard it happening to other builders where the framers are working, and somebody drives up and is like, "Hey, how much are they paying you?" 20 an hour, whatever it was. He's like, "All right, I'll do 30, but you got to leave now." They pack up and gone.
Yeah,
And
that's
they're
crazy.
like, "Wait a minute, what's happening here?" So that same thing is, I guess, happening. I mean, like, I don't know how much of it. I haven't heard of like ICE showing up at construction sites here in Austin, right? So I don't know if it's happening here. It's going to have an effect. It'll all be boiled into tariffs and all of these other things. So we'll see what happens. But I still think, circling it all back, bringing it all together, we cannot change the entry price. And so
That's true.
right now, you can drive the price down. Like, I would say this. So when I talk to sellers about pricing, and they're like, "Well, how about 525?" I'm like, "Well, how about 499?" And they see that 25,000 as like, "Well, I'm giving 25,000 away." And I'm like, "Well, the one, there's nothing to give away when you don't have an offer, right? So there's nothing. But two, when buyers search, they don't say, 'Let's go to 525 because we can negotiate the price down.' It's right at 5.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. So you're missing all of those buyers.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them.
I think a lot of sellers, for some reason, feel like if they list at a certain price, that they're required to sell it for that amount or less.
That is one of the conversations I have with them is that, and it usually starts like, if we listed your house at 200,000, what would happen? You'd probably get 200,000 offers at 200,000.
Right.
But then you'd get somebody like, "Man, this is like a $600,000 home. Let's beat everybody and go to 4."
Right.
And then there'd be another smarter agent that's like, "Let's go to 5. Let's go." And then it would bid up to whatever the market value is.
Yeah, people think if you listed it, then that's what I have to sell it for. And the other misnomer I run into a lot, and this is I don't obviously deal with sellers, but I deal with the buy side. One of the things that I tell people a lot that I get, again, they're these obvious things that people just, and I hear the sigh where people think when they buy a home that they have to own it forever.
I agree. And
it's like, you could sell this thing.
Well, yeah.
Like, if you get tired of it or you don't want to make the payment anymore, fucking sell it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Unless it's a new construction that you had 6%
right,
incentive.
Don't do that. Right. Yeah.
Well, I think again, I think we're talking programming again, and we go back to the people that didn't buy between 2012 and 2019, but we're going to buy next year. It's not that they're never going to buy. They're programmed to not think they're worth it or whatever it is. And when I say programming, like just how they grew up.
Yeah.
Some people grow up knowing they're going to always have money, and guess what? They do, because they don't. It just comes to them in other ways. But so.
No, I ask my buyers. I'll say, and do you have any tattoos?
Yeah.
You buying this house is less permanent,
right?
than your
Exactly.
tattoo.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
And that's what I tell
and
people.
You can even get rid of a tattoo if you want to.
Yeah, I was like, you have done something way more hardcore.
Yeah.
And you're freaking out about this home purchase.
Well, and I think there's, I think so when I deal with first-time home buyers, and I'm like, look, I tell them this at the beginning. I'm like, when you buy this house, it's going to change your life, but change it in ways that you're not really thinking about right now, because you're not going to be worried about signing the lease next year. You're going to know where you're going to be living. You're going to stop being a vagabond, as I said on the last pod, or, a gypsy. No offense to the gypsies out there, right?
Yeah, all those good gypsies out there. We mean no harm.
They have their space.
That's right.
Space, right? So, but it changes their life. Now they can plan for things, right? And so if you're going through this a second time or a third time, or even your first time, like, plan for, do you have kids that need to be in a different school district? Can you leverage the house in 7 years? Do you think you'll be able to leverage the house in 7 years so that you could make a lateral movement into the school district that you want? Or, as you were saying earlier, make a move where you get a bigger house because you're going to have another kid, or you just want a bigger house.
Nothing wrong with that.
When we bought, we bought a corner lot. We were the first. We did buy new construction. We bought corner lot, and my wife was like, "What about this like 2,200 square foot home? It's a really nice floor plan." I was like, "We're buying the biggest, baddest house that we can afford. We're going to put the most amount of stuff in it that we possibly can that we can afford, and that's it. And now we have 3,500 square feet. There's 4 of us. And my wife is like, I don't know if this is enough space. But it's big enough that like we all can go to a place, it's quiet, and we don't have to deal with the other people.
You know, that's one thing when it comes to women. There is one thing that they always want. More.
Diamonds.
More. Just more.
It's true. It's true. I do that when I work with buyers. I'll go into the closet. I'm like, Bob, this is your spot right here. And then it's like the closet's the size of this room. I'm like, this is you, Bob, right here.
Yeah. Anything else you want to cover, brother?
Man, I want to talk about this right here.
Yeah, let's do it.
These are QR codes. And so everybody knows I-35 is getting redone.
It is.
Especially at the upper deck. It's had its, I forgot what they called it. It's end of life. Doesn't mean it's going to fall down. It's just, it's gone as far as they want it to go. So they're going to tear that down, widen I-35, and then, but what they're going to do is they're going to build these things called stitches. Right now, they're only building one, and that's going to be UT paid for it. And it's going to be, I believe, at Cesar Chavez and First Street. It's going to be a huge swath of land where it's going to basically be like a small park where you can walk from the east side to basically UT.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
It's going to be, there's a QR code. Once this gets posted, I'll post these in there so you can get information on that. So what I would say is, while the construction is going on, if you're within eyesight of 35, there's going to be a little bit of noise. There could be some dust, those types of things. But the value of those properties are going to go up even higher now that you can just scooter, because you can walk from Holly Street to downtown.
Yeah.
You just have to cross I-35, which could be unsafe coming back, right? If you've had some bottle service.
Yeah.
But now it's going to be like you can scooter across. It's going to be amazing. People. I think what we're going to see is more Airbnbs, bigger Airbnbs over there. People already like living in 78702, but I think it's going to be it's going to change the face of Austin when we tear down I-35, tear down the upper deck. It's going to be amazing. Hopefully they'll build it quickly, really quick.
Fingers crossed.
All right. Well, hey, man, thanks for having me on.
No, man.
Coming in on a
mine.
Saturday.
First Saturday ever. I literally, Ina was like, wait, you have a podcast? I'm like, yep, the first one. And we're talking, it'll be July 7th will be the 2-year anniversary of the podcast.
Really?
So we are just like a week
You
away
guys are
from
cooking.
that. You're about episode 175 now.
Really? Who's going to be on for 200?
I don't know.
Going to make it a big
I haven't counted them in
Mayor Watson.
I haven't counted them in like 3 months. Every like 90 days I'll go through and just kind of go, okay, and yeah, we're approaching 175, and based on the way things are going, it'll probably be close to like October.
You know what you should do? You should have like a small party here, and then just have like.
We have a party here every Friday.
I know, right? Yeah, and then just have people sit there, people sit here, interview each other.
You know what? We did that one time where we set up the cameras and we set up 4 microphones and we did like a roulette podcast where everyone that was in it was like, hey, go in, sit down for a second. Even if you just want to say hello, just say hello. There was just drinks all on the table and, like people popped in and went in and out. It was a 4-hour podcast. It's up.
That's amazing. I'm going to watch. Well, maybe not watch it all.
4 hours is a long time. When they're that long, they're kind of a pain in the ass to edit too.
Oh, I bet.
But maybe we should do that again.
That'd be amazing. I'll be here. I'll try to be here next Friday. If you're going to party.
4th of July.
Oh, I won't be here next Friday.
We don't. So that's Barbecue and Mingle happens every Friday unless there is a holiday that weekend. So, for example, we didn't do it Memorial Day, 4th of July. There won't be one next week. Labor Day will be the next non-party day.
You will see me, because that means 4th, then I will be in Maui. You'll see me after the 20th.
Perfect.
You'll see me after the 20th.
Look forward to it.
Man, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Had a great time. Take care.